Standing in Israel when I realized something was terribly wrong, and what I saw would later expose a marriage no one was supposed to question. Like you, I was there. During my mother's journey, my mother and I traveled around Israel. There was a moment when I looked up and recognized someone. This was the type of face that many still thought represented perfection. There was meant to be silence at that very time. Nothing was ever going to be revealed by Charlie Kirk's sister, at least not at the outset. However, goals might shift over time. Weeks went by. Ambient murmurs disseminated. Without any opposition, Erica persisted in crafting her narrative of what happened. Over time, a change occurred. At first, what happened next was somewhat subdued. There was nuance, managed effectively. A single discharge set off an unstoppable domino effect. A prominent conservative gossip blogger was emailed a blurry and short late-night screen video. Someone who is known for speaking things that others are reluctant to touch. There was no filtering applied to the contents. Strong feelings. A voice that is definitely Charlie's was used in the writing. It was unpolished. There was no political bias. Without any kind of defense. A frazzled and torn brother. All he could do was drop hints about a secret the family had kept hidden. That was a terrifying inference. Perhaps he was not quite free to choose to marry Erica. There is no way that the timing was worse. An exclusive interview in which Erica painted their love as holy, guiding, and indestructible had just concluded. A different story was conveyed by the texts, though. Charlie sounded everything but relaxed. He seemed trapped. In the same way that a person could feel as they watch his reputation and future distorted by forces beyond their control. It appeared from one communication that he had no desire for this. Out of all the lines, one hit the ground with more force. Instead of affection, it portrayed the partnership as a responsibility, something permanent and unchangeable. The response came right away. Private conversations were inundated with screenshots. Vulgar warnings were tweeted by influencers with insider status. All of a sudden, conservative social media broke apart. However, amidst all the chaos, one question remained unanswered. It is unclear who was responsible for facilitating this union. And the secret that Erica had been keeping from everyone the whole time. His final comments on her being these. I wonder what transpired in those last days to have him spill the beans. Reason being, the rate of revelation did not decrease after it started. Everyone was taken aback by what transpired next. A long time before Charlie Kirk ever held court. Ever since Erica began cultivating her immaculate public persona. Once upon a time, neither name was significant. Seated next to her, he represented a rising political power fueled by control, momentum, and allegiance. Refined and traditional, she possessed an equal measure of ambition and polish. It was no coincidence that they crossed paths. It was organized, managed. It advanced at a calculated pace, according to several insiders who saw its development behind closed doors. Charlie never did anything hasty. Optics, legacy, and long-term power were the guiding principles of his every move. Many people thus presumed that his relationship with Erica was more than just emotional when rumors began to circulate. It was strategic. She connects her presentation to her history. She was the ideal fit for the image he required. Instead of a firebrand, conservative Americans wanted more. Status quo was what they sought. A spouse, the breadwinner. That vision was personified by Erica. A different tale, though, is told by Charlie's closest associates. They remember an atmosphere of uncertainty and pressure during private conversations. The name of Erica would cause Charlie to freeze up, according to a longtime family friend who preferred to remain nameless. He would either sidestep the subject or just nod without excitement, feeling as though he had already been handed the decision. As Erica's position inside the TPUSA inner circle deepened, the situation became increasingly complex. There was more to her than that. Immersed in the brand, she was becoming one with it. Participating in gatherings, showing up in photographs, listening in on confidential conversations. Subsequently, other employees came clean about her meddling with schedules and messages. It seemed as if power had already been taken. The New Year's retreat followed. It was the same time that Erica would later refer to as the turning point in their relationship. The location was a huge mountainous home that belonged to a powerful megachurch benefactor. There was no retreat. The entire weekend was characterized by discipline and ceremony. Gatherings for prayer, prolonged abstinence from food, under-the-radar testimony, spiritual partnership posing. As devotion was what many people came to call it later on. Through her emotions, Erica discussed purpose and surrender. Charlie remained silent. Everything had been worked out by the time the retreat came to a close. I've not made anything public at this time. However, the decision had been crystal clear to everyone within the circle. It seemed perfect on the outside. A happily ever after on the horizon. Unease, though, had started to show up inside the family. One among the first to express worry was Charlie's sister. Things didn't feel right, which she revealed to a trusted friend later on. It was as if someone were leading him into a destiny he had no say in shaping. There were hints that something was wrong, unread messages. He suddenly ceased showing up at family events. There was a change in his very presence on stage. The grin appeared artificial, its vitality diminished. There was tension instead of enthusiasm. He looked exhausted and worn out in the light of a new engagement. Charlie confided in a select group of people he trusted, while Erica was being praised for being the perfect political partner. His topic was pressure, in terms of anticipations. Being instructed when to talk and when to keep quiet. An ex-assistant remembered entering a room where Charlie was still, tears in his eyes, looking at his phone. He gave a disturbing explanation when asked what was wrong. He said that all he had to do was adapt to their current needs. At the time of the wedding announcement, most people thought he was totally committed. The reality was much different, however. A sense of unease had already settled in. Plus, it will be obvious in a little that this was not just a nervous breakdown. There were secret deals. Information is confidential. In addition, there may be an explanation in a message that Charlie once composed but was too scared to deliver. Untold events transpired during the rehearsal dinner that night. Charlie hid in a little room next to the chapel, while Erica and her bridesmaids performed the vows and posted joyful behind-the-scenes moments online. His sister and brother-in-law were by his side. A clandestine conflict developed out of what started as a standard inspection. Charlie reportedly snapped, according to an eyewitness who heard parts of the conversation through the chapel's porous walls. Keep it low. On a more serious note, however, in the subdued, terrible manner that one experiences when they realize they no longer have control. It was his confession. He was at ease that it all seemed manufactured, the intended outcome, directed. It had become too much for advisors, clergy, and benefactors, he said. Erica would be the only one harmed if she left now. Refusing to support the cause would be the prevailing perception. A whole paradigm shift. The words he spoke at that same time lingered in that room. I want to tell him no, he said. It felt like refusing God, he remarked. This is analogous to abandoning loved ones, on the persona that they had molded him into having become. The fact that he never put down the phone, though, frightened them much more. There was a fracture in the screen. There was an open message thread. A single letter made up the contact's name. E, asking if it was Erica, his sister spoke softly. That was Charlie's no. This, he said, was the one he ought to have consulted before the start of the whole ordeal. He was vague about E's identity. An ex, somewhere secure, an individual from a different era. However, the text displayed on the screen was sufficient. In his writing, he expressed his inability to breathe, that he was being strangled by the expectations of everyone around him. Later on in the evening, the guests left the rehearsal dinner. Optimistic group images were posted online by Erica's side. For the most part, Charlie wasn't there. He was depicted in a mere 2 pictures. They've both subsequently gone viral. There he is, grinning at everyone, but he doesn't look relaxed, lacking anything, a detail that has taken on a far greater significance. Like a marketing launch, the wedding event transpired the next day, managed effectively, very remarkable, just when I needed it. But something about the ritual stuck with his sister. Charlie made a gesture with his right hand as the officiant inquired if anybody had any objections. A little bit, decent pay, just a little twitch that went uncontrollably. His younger self may have sent this message to warn him that it was too late to turn back the clock, but he still wanted to. A separate tale was given by the surface for months thereafter. From the outside looking in, everything appeared to be going swimmingly. A bomb went off in Erica's crowd. The union was praised as a divinely destined union on faith-based sites. Although Charlie appeared to be withering behind the scenes, the gap was observed by friends. Not a single message was returned. Friends he had relied on for years, he severed ties with. One thing that had always helped him stay grounded was attending small prayer groups, but he stopped doing that too. After that, the turning point arrived. An intended recipient did not get the message that Erica sent. Even Charlie's sister found it in a group discussion. He would conform, as always, according to the instructions because the brand was more important than his emotions. With that one message, all defenses crumbled. There was silence from Charlie's sister. It was preserved by her efforts. She started preserving everything after that. Image captures from a screen, notes, background information. Why? Because the reality had finally dawned on her. The couple did not tie the knot, the procedure was surgical, and Charlie had no place at the table. He was only a moving part. Nobody saw coming the extent to which Erica would take things from here. Alternatively, the extent to which Charlie's quiet was hiding. Hidden behind it all was something more sinister. The calmness was short-lived. There was never any genuine calm. It was hand-picked. Despite the staged grins and scripted captions in her public pictures, Erica was busy creating her own narrative. An alternate timeline intended to supersede the actual one. Noticing texts, recordings, and partially spoken chats, Charlie's sister could no longer turn a blind eye. One thing became very evident after what transpired. The marriage was not snared by Erica via coercion. She had complete command of the storyline from the start. At a women's conference that one of Erica's closest allies sponsored, the first noticeable crack in the meticulously preserved image emerged. A God-centered brand architect who formerly dominated the internet. Obedience and marriage were the themes of Erica's 45-minute keynote speech. People in the room were upset by the tone almost immediately. Submission was always characterized as non-negotiable, according to other participants who testified afterwards. Continual compliance as evidence of a harmonious attitude. A danger posed by emotional autonomy. Erica seemed to be convincing herself just as much as the audience, according to one woman who spoke to her. Everything changed after that post. The hazy photo was posted by a small Twitter account that has less than 400 followers. Seated in a cafe, Erica. Charlie? No. The man was in his mid-40s and clean-cut. A well-known senior advisor of a strong evangelical lobbying organization. Given the apparent tension in the room, the caption wondered if this was the same minister who had performed the wedding ceremony. It seems ignorable at first, unless someone happened to publish a short footage taken from the cafe's surveillance monitor. This was no idle chatter between the two. It was a heated argument. Using her hand, Erica hit the table. She recoiled clearly when the man leaned close and murmured something. Thousands of accounts were affected by a 2-second freeze frame, imprinted with a single statement implying that another party was in charge. Much conjecture ensued. This man, who was he? We don't know why Erica seemed scolded. I don't understand why her team was so quiet. Charlie's sister then went in a direction nobody anticipated. With only a single statement and a black backdrop, she shared an Instagram story. He expressed his disapproval to me. I will tell you the truth because you deserve it. That was not the end of her. A voice message that Charlie had sent her 3 months prior to the wedding was revealed the same day. He sounded exhausted and unsteady in his speech, hardly audible. The idea of leaving without ruining everything was too much for him, he claimed. A symbol he had become. Plus, symbols couldn't possibly say no. A bomb went off in cyberspace. Instantaneously, conservative social media were divided. Many others jumped to Erica's defense, saying that the Christian woman's influence was the reason she was being singled out. Some people utterly betrayed her, accusing her of manipulating an idea as much as a relationship. Some speculated that the wedding was really a political stunt masquerading as a romantic ceremony, and the next night TikTok was flooded with such speculations. Those who were really advantaged by Erica's reputation. Yet the evidence that was most damning was from within. Someone in the executive leadership of TPUSA released a confidential memo, and digital tracing later confirmed the account's anonymity. Public perception and Charlie and Erica's communications plan were the main points of discussion. It specified the time for announcements, authorized narratives, and pre-written captions. In order to make the most of the reach, one line detailed the engagement post time to the minute. Shortly thereafter, according to predetermined divine timing, Charlie was to get his confirmation. A harsh and immediate response ensued. Even their most ardent fans started to doubt the couple's sincerity. Whether or not love had ever existed, or whether or. Not every moment was contrived and accounted for by money. Next, a different leak surfaced. Erica allegedly responded to worries about Charlie's mental health with icy dispassion, according to a partial email correspondence. Because more important things were at stake, she downplayed her feelings and assured me that it will pass. With everyone's attention seemingly focused on Charlie, his sister dropped the bombshell. Pictured below is a snapshot of Charlie's draft message to Erica, which he had prepared 2 nights before to the wedding but never sent. In his letter, he expressed his desire to fulfill her needs. However, he was becoming disoriented. That instead of tying the knot with a woman, he felt he was pledging his life to a cause. The illusion fell flat at that same second. That style of life was untenable, he wrote. He never hit the send button, but as soon as it came to light, everyone read it. Erica's quiet, which had previously appeared to be one of astonishment, changed into one of calculating at that same moment. The fact that Charlie's sister will not let to go away rang truer than any words Charlie had spoke. Another character's name popped up right as it looked like the narrative was coming to a close. Something about that name transformed the situation from one of pure sadness into one of calculated unease. It came to light in an unexpected way. There has been no tabloid outburst. Avoid posting anonymously, it came with purpose, representing a caution. Political social media was agog when a confirmed conservative media insider posed a single query in a hastily deleted tweet. I don't understand why the lady who oversaw Charlie's wedding plans removed any references to top DC consultants from her LinkedIn profile. A screenshot is attached. Officially, Charlie and Erica's wedding logistics consultant was a lady called Talia Barrett. She didn't seem exceptional at first glance. An experience organizing faith-based events. Presentation with a low-key, traditional style. Next, the excavation started. Her ties to a contentious data analytics business were exposed within 2 days of her being investigated online. One who is well known for helping powerful families find politically savvy Christian partners. Allow that to settle. A matching service based on family history and philosophy. Questions about Erica and Charlie's affection for each other suddenly stopped being asked. What they really wanted to know was if the whole thing had been staged, with all the rituals and scripture, like a corporate merger. The proof continued to pile up. Someone spoke with the presenter of a popular podcast and leaked an audio sample, but they chose to remain anonymous. People thought it was Talia's voice. No one was coerced, she said in it. All they did was point users in the direction of content that would benefit their platform the most. Some, she continued, need a partner who was in sync with the brand. Some people required a narrative of redemption. An individual with great compatibility was said to be Erica. This footage was played live by the presenter. People all across the world heard it. Overnight, the popularity of high compatibility candidates skyrocketed on social media. More like casting than romance, that was the sound of it. Feels more like a natural selection than love. People started viewing former episodes again. A discussion about submission and obedience by Erica. Occasionally, she had trouble describing how she and Charlie first crossed paths. She said it happened through a religion network, but she couldn't remember the state, according to a resurfaced Q&A. Everyone could see the delay. A grin slipped. The delay. A grin slipped. She shifted the subject. Discussion boards went crazy. Many followed Erica's ascent. She had a consistent following among Christians, but had little clout in politics until Charlie. Everything doubled after the engagement. Supporters multiplied. Contracts for publishing. Paid appearances. Product releases. It was aptly expressed in a single comment. Never did she become a part of a movement. In her own image, she remolded it. It was around this time that Charlie began to deteriorate. He started to tone down his once famous incisive and courageous speech. Speeches are rarer, using a gentler tone. Generic verses replaced more personal perspectives in social media messages. The captions appeared to have been pre-made. He was even asked whether he was writing by some of his fans. The most surprising revelation yet was then made. A picture was anonymously provided by a former intern. The Kirk marriage messaging kit seems to be the name of the branding board that was displayed. Below that, you might see bullet points, important terms, dissecting target audiences, a deployment time frame, guidelines for emoji captions as well. Keep the impression of a real romance alive with the last phrase read. Keep the matchmaking process and any other parties involved out of the conversation. Genuine.
Inception, making introductions, outside entity. A tantrum ensued on the web. The relationship between Erica and prominent political individuals began to gradually become more distant. Former partnerships have disbanded. No one noticed when the followers vanished. There was no word from Erica in public. No claims. Not sure what you mean. Completely non-existent. However, there was movement in private. Because of the reposting of her photographs, fan accounts were sent notifications to remove them. Within hours after posting about the story, a YouTuber had many videos reported. It had more of a cleaning vibe than a moderation one. Witnessing the disappearance of evidence in real time was how one advocate put it. Erica then reappeared, without expressing regret. It won't work with a live demo. During the forthcoming marital ministry retreat, she made an appearance in a professionally produced promotional film. She brought up the idea of truth being warped in the introduction, trust being put to the test. Individuals not called to the calling misunderstand God's purpose. Even if it was subtle, the message was clear. She would not budge. It was as if she had regained command. Just when everyone thought the worst was over, Charlie's sister shared one last video. Duration. 4 seconds, no changes. Absence of filters. Sitting on a couch was Charlie. His gaze was burdened. His speech was almost inaudible. They informed him it was sacred, he claimed. He never consented to it, but it seemed like a contract anyhow. As soon as it happened, speculation on the internet ceased. When everything else had already been settled for him, even the marriage had never been his option. Everything was shaken throughout the subsequent 72 hours. It was simultaneous for all the main platforms, social media, apps like TikTok, picture sharing app Instagram. This is Reddit. Myths multiplied minute after minute. Several people thought Charlie was emotionally drained when he joined the marriage. Some said it was plain old spiritual compulsion. Despite this, one inquiry stood out from the rest. Caught in the middle of a religious PR juggernaut was Charlie. And was it immediately clear to Erica? Afterwards, a different tape came to light. It sneaked up on Charlie's cousin's intimate narrative. Instantly, it was being filmed on screen and shared worldwide. The recording showed Charlie pacing restlessly. He sounded quite anxious, raw, close to losing my composure. Donors would be embarrassed, he claimed, if he left now, that he would be seen by the churches with dishonor. It was because of him that people would stop believing. He claimed he was unprepared by the intensity of the feeling. Everyone was stunned by a single sentence. Provoke a crisis of faith. The plot turned around then. Suddenly, the topic of romance had shifted. It has nothing to do with Erica alone. They were the center of a formidable system, an institution that monetized Christian values and imposed adherence via coercion. Publicly, influencers who had previously praised the pair started to distance themselves. Someone expressed their inability to continue as a supporter. Someone other expressed feeling tricked. The morality of using high-profile marriages as political pawns was called into question, even by members of the religious community. Word choice was crucial. Make use of the situation. When an old friend of Erica went live, it was one of the most heartbreaking moments. A little of what Erica had told her was spilled out as she sobbed. It was irrelevant if Charlie was happy or not. They were now a movement, it was said. Impossible to stop. Impossible to stop. That sentence set the ball rolling. Some started to draw parallels between the couple and a firm. Combination under strict supervision, not a coming together of souls, but a strategic partnership. Next, a different leak surfaced. Years after she shared it to a secret Facebook group, someone found Erica's private vision board from a Zoom women's class. A letter, written by hand, lay in the middle of the board. Influence of a spouse. Expand your reach. Craft a plan for the kingdom that spans generations. Choosing not to wed as a couple. Influence of a spouse. A statement that altered the course of events was scribbled in weak letters beneath it. Sharing my image is a way of serving God. There was no way to prevent the backlash. For days, feeds were filled with hashtags advocating for Charlie's choice and rejecting image-driven religion. There were lengthy video essays. Everything was dismantled by commentary channels. Officials from the church even started to speak out. The first formal statement was then issued by Erica's team. It failed to provide any clarification. Nothing was denied. All of it was just ignored. In a stern message, she stated that they would not respond to misinformation that were being spread. The foundation of their marriage was submission, not acceptance. Obedience, however, had lost its
sacred quality at that point. The sound was menacing. An anonymous email disclosure by a former TPUSA contractor further cast doubt on the story. A representative from Erica's brand and a prominent evangelical podcast network exchanged messages. Noteworthy was a single line penned in the weeks leading up to the engagement. Erica was being readied for a platform change centered around marriage. Things were looking up in the relationship. Having Charlie on board emotionally was all that was required. Spiritual guidance was directing him, but he was still apprehensive, providing him with guidance. That was hardly a display of affection. Control was what I heard. The decline of Erica's brand started almost immediately. Not all sponsors stayed on board. Without providing any reason, the speaking events were suspended. Suddenly, her marital devotional book was no longer available for pre-order. Further, Charlie vanished into thin air. Absolutely no posts, not a single tale. Until one morning, a fuzzy image appeared on Reddit. Outside a modest Tennessee counseling institution, Charlie stood, pulling down the hoodie. Totally by myself. I am not on a team. Lack of safety. Please, no videotaping. Nothing more than a guy getting down from his motorcycle. There was an immediate response. If he was finally leaving, they wanted to know. Some pleaded for his release so that he may recover. Someone was losing his mind, and many people realized they had missed it. At last, a solitary recording materialized. The original Instagram account has already been deactivated.
Absolutely no following, absent biography, just a single post. Elvis Presley's voice, archived at some point following the nuptials. He claimed that upon waking up each day, he struggled to recall his true identity prior to the determination of his worth by others. He expressed a desire to rediscover faith and love. Suddenly, there was no longer any sensation that anything was scandalous. I began to feel like I was rescuing people. Restoring my faith in myself is my goal. After then, it ceased. Complete silence. There is no change. Charlie alone. It seemed like his words were his for the first time. Not predetermined, undertaken by someone else. That is his. However, the fact that Erica was far from done caught everyone off guard. Absolutely not. The one thing Charlie had left unattended was her next target. What he left behind. A single image was the starting point. Ideal illumination. Crisp, clear image. Meticulously organized. At a pristine white desk, Erica sat across from a leather diary as an open Bible, a little golden cross shimmering in the sunlight, at peace, pure on purpose. The picture, however, was not what shocked onlookers. A caption was what it was. The secret that Charlie kept hidden. The post went viral in a matter of minutes. Lots many views in the hundreds of thousands. A deluge of remarks ensued. A few are encouraging, fearful for many. After a long period of quietness, Erica had returned, and this time she was not stealthy. Her silence had broken. When she recast herself as the injured person, she was doing so. There was a link in the description. A blog appeared after clicking the link. Along with Charlie, the entire movement was the target of a lengthy open letter that appeared on that page. She penned a piece about treachery, in regards to covert deceit, regarding the concerted campaign to suppress influential, faithful women as a prime target. The wording used was rather formal, exquisitely designed, intended to give the impression that Erica is misunderstood, performed an attack, a devout lady whose sole desire was to establish a house that glorified God. Subsequently, the pivotal line arrived. Charlie did not initially choose her, she conceded. There was talk of his telling her that directly, according to her. However, she insisted that she was the one God had chosen for him. Even if it's hard, you must obey God's commands. With just one comment, the whole affair was recast. The denials had shifted from Erica. They were being sanctified by her. That made many very afraid. In order to create space, several pastors discreetly issued remarks. The inverse was done by some inside the elite evangelical groups. Her remarks were emphasized by them. The letter was shared with captions that praised awkward unions that were intended to spark revolutions and radical obedience. What started as a very private breakdown escalated into a political struggle. On the one hand, Erica was depicted as a contemporary Esther, who, in order to fulfill her destiny, endured enormous suffering. On the other hand, they witnessed a strategic manipulation cloaked in scripture. Disputes abound on TikTok. Every statement was evaluated via Twitter threads. Stands were taken by prominent Christian podcasts. Many were happy to see Erica. Her name was taboo to others. The letter was only the beginning. She dropped a professionally made video series the week after.
There are 3 episodes: Through the Pain of Compliance, The Marriage I Had, My Vocation, The Sword I Bear. Charlie was never said by her. She could have skipped it. He was the object of every metaphor. Some males are termed delicate, she noted in one piece. Misunderstood ladies are among those picked. Sometimes a mission ends up taking the life of a man who wasn't up to the task. It was obvious what was being implied. When put under intense pressure, Charlie did not give in. Even a supernatural test was too much for him. It was chilly. On purpose. Surgical. No longer was she attempting to protect herself. History was being rewritten by her. Next, a response came from Charlie's sister. Only one post, one film, image missing. I don't understand. This is only a screen capture. An entry from Charlie's Notes app that is private and unpublished. He was almost invisible, reading slowly in his voice. I consented to a mission, not a marriage, he stated. That he was completely erased from existence, leaving behind only a calendar and a grin as a result of his compliance. That his likeness became a commercial item. However, he was never intended to be contained. Quick as a flash, the clip became viral. Within a day, almost 14 million shares were made. What Erica was unprepared for then arrived. The evidence. An ex-assistant spoke up without revealing their identity, emails, threads of text, records kept within the organization. Next up is the agreement. An official agreement. It enumerated the needs of the platform, collaborations between brands, productivity in marriage, final products. Instead of a commitment, it's more like a launch for the union. No romantic involvement. The first step.
everything went dark. The contract gave out all the details. Joint appearances were detailed periodically, topics for devotionals that have been first authorized, timelines for posting are synchronized, even a system wherein Erica's marital ministry items are directly linked to a portion of the profits. It was then shown in plain text. In case the marriage doesn't work out, there's a part about narrative management and backup plans. It couldn't be denied. It unsettled me. It had damning evidence. Erica was silent thereafter. That video series just faded away. A password was required to access the blog. All of her platforms blocked comments, no claims. I don't understand. One last post was then posted by Charlie's sister. A screen capture of a private message that Charlie had written to her, but chose not to send. I won't be protected if this goes off. Tell it like it is. Even if nobody else believes in you, I will. People started doing it all of a sudden. However, a new character emerged at the same moment, when it appeared the plot could proceed no farther. Someone who informs on Erica from inside her own inner group. Everything was on the brink of collapse as a result of what she unleashed. She remained hidden at first, complete anonymity, image absent. An informal message was sent to a YouTuber with a reputation for exposing influencer manipulation who is renowned for posting mid-level criticism. There was explosive force in the brief letter. As an inside team member, I worked with Erica. Seriously, I own it all. Actual data files, audio recordings, drafts of the redemption arc pitches included. Are you interested in having them? The data was transmitted in a matter of hours, kept secret. This has been confirmed. Verification of metadata validated, emails, cabinets inside. Audio recordings spanning around 15 months. A thorough expose was released by the YouTuber. The title implied everything. The hidden plan for Erica Kirk's salvation unveiled. A sound file played up first. The voice of Erica, very clear. I can identify it. During a coaching session with her content strategist, she spoke. According to her, they would change course if the situation became visibly chaotic. The narrative of the broken woman would be prioritized by them, obedient despite betrayal, choosing redemption over love. Courage is more marketable than affection. Certain movements of papers might be discerned, a click of the pen. Then she let out a chuckle. He appears guilty whenever she is around, she claimed, knowing that she shone like a beacon. What a contrast. He was the shadow. Immediate action was taken. Once again, Erica became a trend. Not as a speaker, however. As a spouse, no, not in a leadership capacity, for the purpose of conducting public relations campaigns. Many were taken aback. More than just planning was revealed by the audio. Its purpose was made clear. In this instance, the individual was not reacting to the dissolution of their marriage. Long before anybody else saw the fissures, there was someone plotting the fall. The depths of the files were enormous. A folder included script drafts. Lessons from Loving a Broken Man is one of the titles. Belief following treachery. If God does not cure you in the way that
you anticipate. Each script was pre-written. 2 months passed before Charlie ever mentioned feeling trapped in any of the draughts. The financial situation was described in another paper. Release plans, collaborations that are economically supported, circuits for speech. The forecast for the expansion of the audience. There was a dramatic increase in the numbers when Erica adopted the role of a bereaved wife. The numbers were icy, engaged, not focused on recovering. If Charlie seemed emotionally overwhelmed, one column forecast a 14 to 22% jump. Despair transformed into information. They were heartbroken fans. Realness has completely faded. A business concept resembled his disintegration. Marital bliss turned into a marketing tool. Creating a house was not her intention. His quiet was giving her a footing. However, the most catastrophic part remained unseen. Draft Cut Final Vi 3 is the name of the video file. No plans to release it ever. Sitting alone in it was Erica. No cosmetics. Room with limited light. Behind her, a solitary candle glowed dimly. Directing her kind voice towards the camera, she spoke. Sharing this alone was never in her wildest dreams, she said. That our timetable is seldom in harmony with God's. You must have faith that there is a reason to your suffering when the person you had hoped to spend the rest of your life with starts to slowly fade away. She hesitated, caught a breath with a quiver. He was supposedly forgiven by her. I wished he might find it in his heart to forgive himself someday. At that same second, all the pieces fell into place. There was no sadness here. Practice had begun. It was a flawless performance. Damage control wasn't the reason it was filmed, though. Controversy did not prompt it. 2 weeks prior to the couple's first anniversary, it was recorded.
right before the general population gives up. Earlier than Charlie's sister divulged any information, it was ready to go when the time came, all a part of a grand scheme. What little trust there had was shattered by that discovery. Posts that had previously complimented Erica started to be subtly removed by influencers. Without giving a reason, a major publishing firm pulled her next book from circulation. All of the team members vanished into thin air. With all that had been revealed, the redemption plot she had painstakingly built fell apart. For the time being, Charlie said nothing. But later on, confirmation came from someone close to him that he had really distanced himself. Prolonged treatment for trauma, in the absence of social media. Separate from the public. Dedicated to regaining his identity and, by extension, his speech. Erica, on the other hand, had her account maintained. It said in her bio that she was a wife, leader, and queen. However, remarks were limited. Favorites were not shown. A blank screen was all that appeared in her most recent post. Image missing. This was the first occasion she was speechless. However, the tale was far from over. The reason being that in the final mail that the whistleblower sent, she made a reference to one more file. The paper detailing the velocity. The time crunch. I didn't understand why things had been moved along quickly. Charlie was not the only one involved. It has to do with the Kirk surname. Who was the one who actually controlled it? It was the following file. Then it came to light and threatened to destroy everything. The internal strategy paper was marked as confidential. Someone did not send it. Trace of metadata not found. However, its roots can be traced back to a region of the conservative media ecosystem that is considered to be one of the most guarded. A consulting business that had helped Turning Point USA and other prominent Christian influencers who had made a name for themselves by transforming their families into brands was associated with a secure digital vault. The phrases Project Covenant Legacy Brand Alignment Plan were highlighted and bolded at the top. On the second line, Charlie Kirk made an appearance. Melissa on the third. Finally, a name that froze readers on the fourth. It is Usha Vance. People finally realized this was about more than simply a marriage. At that point, a system it was. Power, impact, and generational continuity can be achieved by a planned deployment of ideologically compatible spouses. There was more to Erica's wedding than meets the eye. A launch that was... In order to maintain long-term narrative dominance across political and spiritual platforms, the paper detailed a multi-phase campaign that paired prominent male personalities with female partners associated with the brand. There was talk of stability via covenant union and a regulated softening of the masculine image in relation to emotional vulnerability mapping. Next was the bit that was the most unsettling. Redemption, if rebellion occurs, is the title of this flow diagram. The name Charlie was encircled in crimson. Next to it, directions.
Solution displayed. Shift to martyr framing if the target declines the mission. Establish emotional detachment. Embrace opposition as a sign of inner fragility. There it was, already drafted. Authorization granted in advance. Subsequently, the murmurs surfaced again. On topics other than Erica as well. However, in regards to other topics, resurfaced posts were made by other wives of influencers, the identical tongue, consistent pitch, hard work and obedience. Christian fashion labels are dealt with by the identical brand. Adhering to the aesthetics of dedication, identical typefaces. No one could turn a blind eye to the patterns, consistent too much, excessively shiny, a lack of empathy. Then an unforeseen event occurred. Charlie returned, disregarding Instagram. Instead of issuing a news release, however, in a low-key webcast from a tiny Christian therapeutic organization's trauma healing conference, which had a minimal viewership, Erica was never said by him. That wasn't necessary. Getting away from authority is not disobedience, he claimed. Giving up on a system that silences you is not a revolt. Unloved among us were some of us. We were marked. Healing might appear as quiet at times when your spirit transforms into a plot point. All movement in the room came to a full stop. Messages of condolence and encouragement flooded the discussion, everyone acknowledging that they had let him down. When he was never only a symbol, it was said, his survival is much appreciated. A tissue was offered to him by the host as he closed his eyes. He trembled with fear, claiming he had no intention of exposing anybody he left. Once again, all he wanted was to be himself. Long overdue. Things started to calm down. Once more, a new file showed up. Kirk Air Contingency is the name of the paper. Another one concerned a youngster. If the union was premeditated, then the love was forcing. A story that was not true.
Consider the implications for a brand newborn child. The worst part had not been revealed, if Erica had gone that far. Uncertainty was not the only thing that the Kirk heir contingency paper did. What little delusion was left was destroyed. Family planning was not this. This is not an individual opinion. For kids, it's not a prayer-filled hope. There was no comparison at all. The aftermath had just started. No, this was no informal draft or sketch. A comprehensive strategy plan was contained therein. Outlook for future expansion, press releases, modeling audience retention, standard practices for aging brands, precise mapping of every feature. In a crisp, sharp typeface, the phrases that caused respondents to physically flinch were at the top of the first page, arc projected. Section 4, Strategy for Narrative Acceleration. There were 3 parts to the document, prior to being born, while carrying a child. Execution upon birth. The speech was lifeless, exactly right, ruthless. In order to gradually introduce parenthood through obedience, the preconception phase plan outlined influencer seating arrangements and speaking schedules for Erica. Crafting a sacred space. Put my faith in God's timing. Every presentation was accompanied by carefully chosen scripture and scheduled guest podcast spots with religious mothers who were aligned with the brand. Appropriate announcement windows according to virality cycles were shown visually in a timeline graphic. Spring, winter, midterm elections, placed 3rd overall. The next stage was becoming pregnant. Aesthetics were the sole subject of this section. Casual, color-neutral attire, sacred melodies, images of heavenly motherhood, the trip recorded with regulated openness, unrealized exposure, an appropriate level of candor to maintain participation without provoking negative reactions. Other political wives were included in sample photo shoots with ultrasound photographs, in one connected file that was eventually made public in its entirety. Release the scriptures. Personalized infant clothing. Raising a warrior for the kingdom was one of the captions. Relied upon for an occasion like this. Discipline leaves a lasting impression. Next was the bit that was the most unsettling. Immediately following the birth of the child. Linked to Erica's speaking circuit, the plan included a 6-month launch of baby-centered material. Her wife's redemption course is relaunching. The Battle for Our Baby is the title of a documentary series that was once planned. Continuity, devotion, a heart in peril. Yes, some kind of documentary series. Completely scripted. Prior to this, it was marketed to other streaming services by Faith Forward Media. The internet went downhill at that point. A lot of people were furious. It horrified them. A media empire had already swallowed an unborn kid. In an instant, Erica's remaining credibility vanished. Things became ugly in the comment areas. That is not being a mother. Marketing at its finest. She has no plans to start a family. A product is being
built by her. There must be a way to make money off of an unborn child. No spouse was lost by Charlie. There was a firm from which he managed to flee. Afterwards, the last voice memo came to light, published by the identical informant. A few weeks before to Charlie's disappearance from public view, they were dating. A soothing tone came from Erica's voice. Calming, almost. The producer she was dealing with remained anonymous. She claimed he was apprehensive. Fear gripped him. However, he remained steadfast until the baby was born. She knew him, she said, that he always took duty seriously. Subsequently, she spoke the remark that turned everything upside down. After that, everything becomes crystal clear, so much for love. Having faith was not that. I was ensnared. Charlie then spoke once more. Certainly not during a news conference. Online, no. A nonprofit dedicated to trauma healing issued an open letter written by its members. The texture was undefined, unequal surface, overflowing with unpolished sorrow. According to his writings, he never divorced his wife. A machine just missed him. That when he peacefully passed away within, he was lauded for his obedience. That there was no breakdown here, it felt good to let go. There was a highlighted last sentence at the very bottom. It is once again my name. Discrepancies persist. There has been no word from Erica at all. The webpage she uses is not currently accessible. She had to cancel her speaking tour. Collaborations came to an end. The documentary about babies was secretly canceled before filming began. There is, however, one last cliff. The disclosure comes from the whistleblower who claims that one file remains unclaimed, no one can access it, only labeled. The final protocol for Erica Kirk. The contents could include clues as to her level of willingness to go to hidden places. After all, who will follow Charlie if he was just the beginning?
We now find ourselves in the aftermath of what was once hailed as the ideal conservative union. You are already aware of the truth if you have persisted in being here. A love story it was never. Scripture was used as a symbol in a branding effort, an ostensibly vowing alliance of allegiance. It was only because one sister kept looking that the sound of a quiet cry could be heard. Additionally, Charlie and Erica are no longer the sole subjects of this. An whole system has been revealed, a structure. Currently, conferences are following the same pattern. Audio recordings, Bible verses, a selection of well-selected feeds, a large number of marriages are being manipulated for financial gain. I can't believe how many influencers pose for photos while making money off of their submissions. The number of submissive women being groomed to introduce the next commodity for salvation is staggering. The question now belongs to you. Was Erica completely lucid from the start? Maybe she was similarly ensnared in something too formidable for her to free herself from. A legacy plot may have resulted in Charlie being collateral damage. Or did he comply, up until the point of breaking? Give your opinion. The final procedure may or may not leak, in your opinion. Imagine if other individuals are mentioned. Would it be possible for Charlie to finally take a seat and talk freely? Maybe this was always the norm, and we are only now starting to unearth the marriage industry's core. Join now, be vigilant. For the simple reason that the upcoming release could be more sinister than everything that has come before. And if you're new around, you should know that here's the spot where people go to ask the tough questions. See you later. Be vigilant. Persist in inquiring. I mean, a contract may be hiding behind every picture-perfect relationship.